It starts quietly, not with a dramatic collapse, but with a slow, almost invisible dimming. A person stops replying as fast. They stop making plans for next month. They say, "I'm just tired," so many times that everyone, including them, stops asking why. The smile stays roughly the same. The jokes still land. And underneath all of it, something is slowly going out, like a light on a very long, dimmer switch that no one else can see turning. From the outside, it can look like ordinary sadness, a bad week, a rough patch. But what's actually happening inside a suicidal mind is something far more specific and far more misunderstood. It's not that the person wants to die in the way we usually think of wanting something, the way you'd want a job or a vacation. It's that the pain they're carrying has become so loud, so constant, that ending it feels like the only exit left on the map. Psychologists call this psychache, a term coined by psychologist Edwin Schneidman, meaning a pain that isn't physical, but feels just as real, just as urgent, and just as unbearable as any physical wound. And when psychache becomes intense enough, the mind does something dangerous. It narrows. This is called cognitive constriction. The person's thinking, which once had dozens of possible paths, shrinks down to just two: endure this forever or make it stop. All the other options, therapy, time, a different job, a different city, a different chapter entirely, quietly disappear from view. Not because they don't exist, but because the mind in crisis genuinely cannot see them anymore. This is why so many people who survive an attempt later describe a strange, sobering realization. In that moment, they weren't thinking clearly. They weren't seeing the whole board. They were trapped in a tunnel with only one visible door, convinced that door was the only way out, when in reality, the walls around them were never as solid as they seemed. Understanding this changes everything about how we should respond to people in crisis. Because a suicidal person isn't weak and they aren't seeking attention. They are, in the truest sense, drowning and reaching for the only thing that looks like solid ground in that exact moment. So what actually leads someone here? It's rarely one single event, no matter how much we want a clean, simple explanation. It's usually an accumulation, small weights added one at a time until the total becomes unbearable, chronic stress that never gets a break, isolation that convinces someone their absence wouldn't even be noticed, let alone mourned. A sense of being a burden, which research consistently shows is one of the strongest predictors of suicidal thinking, not sadness alone, but the specific belief that other people would be better off without them. And often, a feeling of entrapment, the sense that there's no way out and no way through, that every door has quietly locked itself. These beliefs feel like facts from the inside. They are not facts. They are symptoms. But they don't announce themselves as symptoms, the way a fever announces itself with heat. They announce themselves as certainty, as calm, sober conclusions the person has simply, finally arrived at. There are warning signs, and they're worth knowing, not as a checklist to diagnose someone from a distance, but as an invitation to pay closer attention. Someone withdrawing suddenly from people they used to rely on, giving away belongings that matter to them, tying up loose ends without quite explaining why, talking about being a burden or saying things like, "It would be easier if I wasn't here," even in an offhand, joking tone. A sudden, unexplained calm after a period of visible distress, which can, counterintuitively, mean a decision has already been made internally and the anguish of deciding is over. Changes in sleep, appetite, or the ability to concentrate that don't have another obvious cause. None of these signs guarantee anything on their own, but together, layered over time, they're a signal worth taking seriously. not dismissing as a phase, a mood, or something that will pass with a good night's sleep. Here's something that surprises people, and that research has confirmed again and again. Asking someone directly if they're thinking about suicide does not plant the idea in their head. Studies have consistently shown the opposite. It often brings relief, because most people in this state aren't hiding their pain out of secrecy or shame alone. They're hiding it because they don't think anyone actually wants to hear it, or because they've learned, sometimes the hard way, that saying it out loud makes people uncomfortable and pull away. So if someone matters to you and something feels off, the most powerful thing you can do isn't to fix them. It's to ask, plainly and without flinching, "Are you thinking about ending your life?" And then to listen without rushing to reassure them that everything's fine, because right now, to them, it isn't. And being told otherwise only confirms that no one is really hearing them. The mind in crisis is convinced that its narrow tunnel is the whole world, that nothing exists outside it. But connection is one of the few forces powerful enough to widen it back out, even slightly, even for a moment. Not because one conversation fixes everything, it rarely does, but because being truly seen, without judgment, without panic, interrupts the isolation that fuels the crisis in the first place. It's a crack of light in a space that felt sealed shut. Recovery from suicidal thinking isn't usually a single dramatic turning point, a movie-style epiphany. It's a slow, uneven re-widening of the tunnel. Therapy that helps someone build distress tolerance, learning to survive a wave of pain without believing it will last forever. Medication that can lift the fog enough to think clearly again, to see more than two doors. Relationships that remind someone, even quietly, even without grand gestures, that their absence would in fact be devastating to real people who love them. And time, which the crisis brain insists doesn't exist, insists nothing will ever change, but which is often the exact thing that changes everything, slowly, without announcing itself. If you've ever had these thoughts yourself, here is something worth holding on to. The tunnel vision is real, but it is not permanent, and it is not the truth about your life or your worth. It is a symptom of unbearable pain, finding its way through a mind that is exhausted, not broken beyond repair, not defective, simply overwhelmed. You don't have to solve everything today. You don't have to see the whole path forward right now. You just have to stay long enough for the tunnel to widen again. And it does widen, not always quickly, not always in a straight line, but it does. If you're struggling right now, please reach out to a crisis line. In the US, you can call or text 988. In the UK, Samaritans is available at 116123. In India, you can reach AASRA at 9122-275-46669. If you're elsewhere, a quick search for Suicide Helpline plus your country will connect you to local support. You are not a burden for reaching out. You are exactly the reason these lines exist.